Welcome to the first of several videos that will be walking through the Microsoft Official Academic Course Lab Manual, Installing and Configuring Windows Server 2012 R2 in preparation for exam 70-410, written by Craig Zucker. I am not the author of this text, and I do not represent the authors of this text. I am an instructor simply using this material for educational purposes. I do recommend that you purchase this lab manual as well as the accompanying text to fully engage in this set of videos. There's a lot of great information in there that will help you in completing your certification. Now, before we can get into installing the servers, there is some housekeeping we need to do. I have Windows 8.1 Pro, and I will be utilizing Hyper-V for my virtual manager. However, if you do not have Pro and do not have access to Hyper-V, you can also download VMware or Oracle's VirtualBox. Either one will allow you to work within these labs. Also, I will be working with Server 2012 as well as Server 2008. If you are a student, you should be able to get access to both of those ISOs from your instructor, who can give you Microsoft Imagine access. So the first thing we're going to do is some additional housekeeping to get us set up. If you're not sure if you have Hyper-V on your machine, if you right-click on your Windows icon and then click on Programs and Features, click on Turn Windows Features On or Off. You'll see I have Hyper-V here. If I click on my plus sign to expand it and my plus sign again to expand this, you can see I have all of my check marks. So if you're installing Hyper-V for the first time and you do see it, go ahead and just check it, and it'll go ahead and install it for you. It will make you reboot the system, so go ahead and reboot. Once you reboot and log back in, come back to this screen, and you want to make sure you have all of your check marks. If you don't, if 2 of these or 3 of these are, I believe 2 of them will be grayed out, there is something in your BIOS that you have to update, and that's going to be, it's under VT or Virtualization Technologies. Again, you'll have to do that in your BIOS, and I know there's several videos available on YouTube that will walk you through that. But again, if this is grayed out, you have to go into your BIOS and make those adjustments. So I'm going to go ahead and click on OK. The next thing I want to do is I'm going to be using Hyper-V quite a bit, so I'm going to add it to my taskbar. So if I right-click, search, type in Hyper. There's my Hyper-V Manager. I'm going to right-click on it, and I want to pin this to my taskbar. Here it is, and I just want to hold down my left mouse click and drag this over, because we're going to use this quite a bit. Now, the next thing we're going to do is open up our Windows Explorer, and I want to add a file folder that I'm going to store all the virtual machines and hard disks for these labs. So I'm just going to open up my C drive, right-click, New, Folder, 70-410, Enter, and I want to add a shortcut to my desktop so I can always get to it. Okay, so this is just a shortcut. Now, in my folder, I want to add 2 more folders. The first one is going to be the virtual machines, so I'll just call it machines. And then the second one is going to be hard disks. Alright, so now I'm going to close out of this and click on my Hyper-V. And you'll see I have my server already open. That's what this is. This is my server on my live machine. If I click on Stop Service, So when you first log into Hyper-V, if this is what you see, then you simply just have to click on Start Service, and then you'll get this back up. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add a switch. Now, what a switch does is it connects the various devices of your network together. So we want to do that. We want it to be able to communicate with each other. So we're going to click on Internal, and then Create Virtual Switch, and make sure this says Internal here. And we're just going to call this Internal Switch. Keep it simple. And then click on OK. Okay, now we have our internal switch. The next thing we're going to do is go into Hyper-V settings. This is where we're going to tell Hyper-V where we want to store our hard disks and our virtual machines. So I'm going to click on Browse, and I put it on my C drive. So I'm going to click on my C drive, and I put it here. And I'm going to select disks. It's the first one. Select folder, and then go down to machines and browse. Machines, select folder. Now you'll see both of these are updated. And I'm going to go ahead and click on OK. So now we're ready to add our first virtual machine. So we are going to right-click New Virtual Machine, and we're going to call this one Server A. And then Next, and then Next. And we're going to change our startup memory to 2048, and then we're going to utilize Use Dynamic Memory for this virtual machine. And then Next, and we're going to go ahead and connect it to the internal switch, and then Next again. Now, as far as the amount of storage, we shouldn't need any more than 70 for our server A. When we get into server B and C, they're both going to be 60. We're going to go ahead and click on Next. And we want to install it from a ISO. Now, I already have my ISOs on my machine, so I'm just going to navigate to it. And again, you can get the ISOs from Microsoft Imagine through a subscription you would get from your instructor. I just have to remember where I put it. Browse. It's on my desktop under operating systems. And here's my server 2008 R2. Next up, we're going to start with server 2012. And then click on Open. And then Next. And then Finish. And then server B, New Virtual Machine, server B, Next, Next, 2048, Use Dynamic, Next, connected to the switch, Next, I'm going to change this to 60, and then Next. And then install operating system from bootable CD, DVD, ROM, image ISO, browse. This one I'm going to do server 2008, and then open, and then next, and then finish. And what we're doing is we are preparing for a classroom-based virtual machine. That's how we're going to run the labs. However, there are other options. The first option that's listed is the Microsoft Labs Online or MLO. This one is where each student is required a basic workstation that accesses virtual machines that's hosted by servers on the internet. The problem that I found with having this in class is that if you've got 25, 26 students all trying to access the internet at once, you're going to have connectivity issues. So we've chosen to use the classroom-based virtual machines until I can get the additional hardware installed in the classroom so we can do actual live machines with real live servers. But working within the classroom, we're gonna see different issues, and those are some of the issues you're going to see in real life. Whereas if you work with the MLO or the Microsoft Labs Online, this is a perfect simulation. What I mean by that is if you follow step A, B, and C the way you're directed, you're going to get to the next step. Whereas working with the classroom-based virtual machines, there are things that we're going to run into that's going to help you in the field. So right now we've essentially set up our two machines. If we're talking about a physical perspective, we basically have just two machines, and all we've done is we put in a disk for server 2012 and server 2008, and we have a switch that they are both connected to. So now we have to install that operating system. So now we're going to double click on server A and then click on the green button. And then I'm going to go ahead and double click on server B and then click on the green button. And then minimize this and put these two things side by side. Now, server 2012, we are going to need a license key, which I have. Again, if you have Microsoft Imagine Access, your instructor can give you a lab key. With server 2008, you do not need a lab key. It'll go right through without any kind of license. So as you can see, we've jumped into lab 1. And we have started the clean installation of the server A. We've also started the clean installation of server 2008, which we're going to eventually do a server upgrade to server 2012. And then we'll eventually go ahead and install server C. Done that. And we're going to be going through this. So I'm going to minimize this and see where we're at. So right now we're on our initial Windows setup. I'm going to click on Next on both. Install now on both. I want you to notice some of the differences between server 2012 and server 2008. It's nice to see them side by side, in my opinion. Now I'm going to go ahead and shut the video off for just a moment while I enter my license key, and then I'll click on Next, and then I'll resume the video. Okay, so now you'll see that I have on my server 2012, I have Windows Server 2012 R2 Standard Server Core Installation, or Windows Server 2012 R2 Standard Server with GUI. Under the Server Core installation, this is simply just your command line prompt. That's all it's going to give you. It's not going to give you a GUI or graphic user interface. So we're going to choose Server 2012 R2 Standard Server with GUI. And because I'm doing that, I want to make sure I choose Standard over here as well. Again, full installation. So I'm going to do Next over here. And then Next over here. I want to accept the terms on both. And Next. And Next. Now this is an initial install, so I'm going to choose the Custom Install Windows Only Advanced on both. And you'll notice that there's only one partition on both. And you see that we have drive 0 unallocated space on both. Now, if you were doing an installation, let's say Windows, if you were doing like an upgrade from Windows 8 to Windows 10, you may see additional partitions here. But since this is a fresh installation and we're only doing server, there's only the one. So we're just going to click on next. And then next over here as well. And I'm going to pause the video while we wait for this to go through its process. Okay, while this is installing, I want to go over a couple things. We looked at the different versions of Windows Server. Of course, I only had the one version of Server 2012 available. As far as Windows Server 2012 R2, we have the data center. This edition is designed for large and powerful servers with up to 64 processors and fault tolerance features like hot add processor support. As a result, this edition is available only through the Microsoft Volume licensing program and from original equipment manufacturers that are bundled with the server. Now, the Windows Server 2012 R2 standard is the edition that includes a full set of Windows Server 2012 features, varying from the Data Center edition only by the number of virtual machine instances that are permitted by each license. The Windows Server 2012 R2 Essentials. This edition includes nearly all the features in the Standard and Data Center edition, except for the Server Core, Hyper-V, and Active Directory Federation services. This edition is limited to one physical or virtual server instance and a maximum of 25 users. Then you have the Windows Server 2012 R2 Foundation, which is the reduced version of the operating system and is designed for small businesses that require only basic server features, such as file and print services and application support. That edition includes no virtualization rights and is only limited to 15 users. Now, computers that run the Windows Server 2012 R2 operating system can perform a wide variety of tasks using both the software included with the product as well as third-party applications. The activities that Windows Server 2012 R2 performs for network clients are known as roles. After you install the Server 2012 operating system, you can then use Server Manager or Windows PowerShell to assign one or more roles to that computer. Now, while this is installing, I can show you where PowerShell is, and you can see I already have it on this is my live machine, and I already have it on my taskbar on my live machine. So if I pull up PowerShell from my live machine, you can see it looks like command line interface, but it gives you more of the administration privileges than just command line. And you'll see that we have finished with Server 2008. And once we get into Server 2012, we're going to be adding roles as well as some features. Some of the key roles that we're going to be adding include the Active Directory Certificate services. This implements certification authorities or CAs and other services that facilitate the creation and management of the public key certificates used by the identity and access control elements of the Windows Server 2012 R2 security infrastructure. Again, this is a security thing. If you don't have keys, you can't get in, so it's a way of securing it. You also have Active Directory Domain Services, or ADDS. This configures the server to function as an Active Directory domain controller, which stores and manages a distributed database of network resources and application-specific information. They're both under Directory Services. Under Infrastructure, we're going to be doing the DHCP, or Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol server, which provides network clients with dynamically assigned IP addresses and other TCP/IP configuration settings such as subnet masks, default gateway addresses, and domain name system DNS server addresses. We'll also be doing the DNS server, which is going to provide name to address and address to name resolution services for the ADDS and the Internet clients. The Windows Server 2012 R2 DNS Server implementation also supports dynamic DNS and DHCP integration. We'll also be installing Hyper-V, which provides obviously the hypervisor-based environment in which administrators can create virtual machines, each which provides an isolated instance of the operating system environment. And then you have application services. And I'm not going to go into detail on this. I'm just going to tell you what those are. You have application server, which provides the integrated environment for deploying and running server-based business applications. You also have the fax server and file and storage services. Okay, server A looks like it's ready to be logged into. And then this is going to be the password we're going to be utilizing through all the labs. Okay, so it's capital P, little a, $, $W, 0 RD. We're going to be using that on everything. Although it's not good business practice, for simplicity of these labs, this is the password we're going to be using. Click on Finish, and then on server B, we're going to click on OK to change the password, and the same thing. Same password. Here we'll go ahead and click on OK. And now what we're going to do is log into our server A. We'll click on here and this simulates the Control-Alt-Delete. And then put in our password. Alright, so I've rebooted my server A so I can get a little bit larger screen to make it a little bit easier to see. So I have server A and I have server B. Now I want to go ahead and close out this initial configuration task, so I want to show you them side by side from the server manager. Alright, so if I click on local server, and this is server 2012, move here, Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is I want to change the time zone. So I'm going to click over here on server 2012, click on time zone. And I'm on the Eastern time zone, so I'm going to change it to Eastern on both sides. And then OK. Now this one I'm going to do a little bit differently. I'm going to click on in the taskbar. And then OK. And then OK. Now you'll notice over on server 2012 that on dashboard. Under roles and server groups, I have one role installed, and that's the file and storage services. Plus I have a local server and all servers. Over here, if I expand roles, you'll see I have no roles installed out of 17. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and on local server, and I want to add the IP address for each one of these. So I'm going to click on here, left click, right click, properties, IPv4, properties, and I want to use this IP address, 10.0.0.1. I'm not going to worry about the DNS just yet. Oops, forgot the subnet mask. And then OK. And you know what? I'll go ahead and put in the subnet 10 because this is going to be the main server. And then OK. And then close. And I'll close out of this. Now I want to do the same thing over here, but I want to do it from here. So left click, open Network and Sharing Center, change adapter settings, left click, right click, properties, IPv4, properties, and then this one is going to be 10.0.0.2, and then the preferred DNS is 10.0.0.1, and then OK, and then close, and then close. Now the next thing I want to do is I'm going to change the name, and once we change the name of each of these machines, we're going to have to reboot both. So change system properties over here, change, and this is going to be known as server B, and then OK, and then OK, close, restart now. Now this one's a little bit easier. I just go to computer name, click it, change, server A, and then OK. And then OK, and then close, and then go ahead and restart now. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to add Hyper-V to both of these machines, and I want to show you two ways to do it. I'm going to use 2008 to go through the server manager. There we go. And then roles. I'm going to go ahead and add a role. And I can do the same thing over here on server A to add a role, but I want to show you the command line to add a role on server 2012. Next. And check off Hyper-V. So it's not going to let me add Hyper-V through server 2008. So I'm going to cancel. But you can just add Hyper-V through 2012, either through the add roles or through the command line. I'm going to open up PowerShell to show you that command line. And right now what I'm doing is I'm just going to increase the size of the fonts on this so it's easier to see. There we go. Now to add to add Hyper-V through the command line, we're going to type in DISM space / online space / enable - feature space / feature name Microsoft - hyper - v. And then I'm going to go ahead and reboot. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and remove the media from both of these. Because remember when we install these, we use the ISOs. I'm going to eject those ISOs. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to turn on the network sharing. So if I open up my File Explorer and then click on Network, you'll see I get this that comes up. I want to go ahead and click to change it and turn on Network Discovery and File Sharing. And then yes. And you'll see my live machine on here. Close out of this for now and I wait for this to come up. Okay, so now I've rebooted my server A. And you can see we now have the roles that are installed. We have file and storage services as well as Hyper-V. Now I've been jumping around a little bit between the lab and the lab setup. I want to kind of get back on track on the lab itself. So we're going to go into exercise 1.2, which is performing an upgrade installation. So we're going to do that on server B, which currently has no roles. And this is server 2008. The first thing I want to do is I want to basically install or insert the server 2012 disk. I'm going to click on Media, DVD, Insert Disk, and I'm going to click on the server 2012 and then open. So now what I've done is I've opened up the CD and I've put the CD in for server 2012. So now it should be able to read it. If I click on my File Explorer, click on the computer, you can see that it's now been inserted. And I'm going to go ahead and run setup from here. And then install now. and then no thanks. Enter. And I'm going to put my code in again. So I'll resume the video.